In 2019, the virtual YouTuber agency Unlimited sacked and replaced the cast of Game Club Project amid allegations of poor management and workplace abuse. The rest of the agency's channels were thrown into disarray. Their fans were outraged, and Unlimited arguably still hasn't fully recovered from the backlash. These may seem like the actions of a company that is completely out of touch with reality. And maybe they are. However, despite all this, I actually think that Unlimited's management understands what VTubers are better than anyone else. Their characters. If you're not familiar with them, virtual YouTubers, or VTubers, are a relatively new phenomenon, mostly coming out of Japan. In essence, these YouTubers use motion capture technology to vlog, game, and stream with virtual avatars, usually anime-style models, either 3D or live 2D. Full disclosure, I love VTubers, possibly to the point of obsession. I was a big fan of Aileen, who was possibly one of the first ever virtual YouTubers, and I followed Kizuna Ai when she first took to the online stage. However, as I've grown up and spent concerning amounts of money attending university, I've been thinking more and more about the industry that underlies this VTuber phenomenon. I think there is something to be learned about the philosophy of celebrity culture from taking a peek behind this pixelated curtain. What happens when the actor behind the character ceases to matter?
Hooray! Minecraft! We've created a new server.
When I was just a little lad, I loved watching The Shadow of Israfel. For those poor souls who don't know what I'm talking about, Shadow of Israfel was a Minecraft machinima series produced by the channel The Yogscast, then Blue Zephos. It was an adventure story, where our protagonists, Zephos and Honeydew, set off on a perilous journey to save the world from an evil, demonic threat, something they never really got around to finishing. When we meet our protagonists, the characters don't really exist. The series begins like an ordinary Minecraft Let's Play, and was actually one of the first to kickstart the Minecraft trend. It's only many episodes in that the story begins to unfold. The duo are attacked by the titular villain Israfel, and meet a new ally, Old Peculiar, both of whom are played by other people. And it is only as the story begins to unfold, as the two become more and more immersed in this world, and meet many more colorful characters, that Zephos and Honeydew, the heroes, really emerge. Lewis Brindley and Simon Lane, the hilarious duo behind Zephos and Honeydew, are completely aware the entire time that everything they are seeing is just an act. Of course there's no real stakes. Daisy Duke, their damsel in distress, is never in any real danger, because it's all fake. They know this, and so does their audience. Throughout the series, the two engage in a fair bit of roleplay, building their characters as a noble space explorer and an adventurous dwarf, battling the forces of evil. And what made The Shadow of Israfel so moving to me as a child is the way that the character and the actor in the series became one through their differences. Bertolt Brecht was a German playwright, best known for his pioneering of epic theater, a technique in which the audience is intentionally made aware that they're watching a play, not reality, to give the audience a sense of detachment that would allow them to view the performance critically. In epic theater, both the audience and the actors are constantly made aware that what is happening on stage is a story written with a purpose and a message. If you want a discussion of Brecht's techniques by someone much more qualified, a professor named Laura Levin has made a very useful video that I will link in the description. Brecht was very keen on dialectics, which is a method of understanding something as a unity of two opposing concepts or processes. Dialectics were pioneered by the German philosopher Hegel, and you can think of dialectics like yin and yang. Dialectics embraces contradiction. It's actually premised on the idea that this conflict exists everywhere. Marx, another German philosopher, later combined it with materialism, which is the belief that everything exists in the physical world. Marx is most famously known as the founder of communism, but he isn't really. Communism existed long before Marx. Marx's actual philosophical contribution was this dialectical materialism, which allowed him to make specific critiques of capitalism that his predecessors couldn't conceptualize. Specifically, a focus on class struggle, the conflict between economic classes of people based on who owns the stuff that makes value. Brecht himself was a Marxist, and this worldview shaped his stances on theater. Brecht instructed his actors to view their characters dialectically, as cited in the piece Brecht and the Contradictory Actor. Note here the dialectic between playing and experiencing that Brecht lays out.
Ignorant heads interpret the contradiction between playing and experiencing as if only the one or the other appeared in the actor's work. In reality, it is, of course, a matter of two competing processes that unite in the work of the actor. Out of the struggle and the tension between the two antipodes, the actor draws his real impact.
Here, playing refers to presenting the character as a piece of the story, and experiencing refers to the emotional foundation of an actor's understanding of their character. Thus, the conflict between the existing relations of characters and the actor's experience as the character, and how these two forces struggle for control over what the audience sees, is what Brecht sought to resolve. Brecht believed that a realistic theater was neither just playing nor experiencing, but the unity that is achieved from the contradiction and resolution of the two opposing forces. Remember Shadow of Israfel? The heroes weren't just lines on a script, and they weren't just two guys playing a video game. Xephos and Honeydew emerged from the conflict and resolution of both of these perspectives. Brecht made the dialectic between actor and character dramatic, but it doesn't have to be done that way, as I hope I've demonstrated with Shadow of Israfel. So what are VTubers doing differently that I would say that in this case, the actor has ceased to matter? Well, Unlimited didn't just sack their entire cast. No, they went the extra mile. Along with announcing that weird bird brain decision, Unlimited added this absolute gem, which you can actually credit as the genesis of this very video.
Game Club Project has been running with the intention of letting those who are working hard now as YouTubers talk to the viewer behind the camera, using the term VTuber. However, what we are aiming for may be more appropriate to describe as C-Tuber, rather than VTuber. After examining the call of Game Club Project and the role of Unlimited, and voice actors in that role, it was decided that this time the voice actors would be replaced by new voice actors.
Christ. So, Unlimited themselves define a C-Tuber as a character YouTuber, emphasizing that what matters to the C-Tuber is the character they play, not really the actor themselves. Hence, they're replaceable. I'd like to propose that we take this a step further, because I don't think that C-Tuber is something that's unique to Unlimited. In fact, I'd go so far as to say that all VTubers can more or less be called C-Tubers. As an example of C-Tubers outside of Unlimited, Hololive presents its talents as idols, especially notable in their recent live event, Nonstop Story. Japanese idols are notable for adhering to strict prohibitions on aspects of their personal life, including their relationships, and this is something that carries over to Hololive, in which the actors generally avoid discussing details of their personal life for risk of severe consequences, as we'll see later. So, we can see here that plenty of other VTubers are built primarily around their character, not the actor. Another example of this is Kisuna Ai, long may she reign, who has been voiced by multiple actors, at times simultaneously. She's known for constantly claiming herself to be an AI, and great efforts are made to prevent any details about the actors themselves from being released into the public. Speaking of Kisuna Ai, she's as of late been associated with a talent on the other side of the globe, who also presents himself as a character. That's right, we couldn't talk about internet personalities without eventually getting around to him. It's PewDiePie. PewDiePie also engages in acting out a character, although how much of PewDiePie's performance is his genuine personality and how much is an act is up for debate. However, what's clear is that PewDiePie has 50? He has 100 million subscribers? Anyway, PewDiePie is famous, but not in the same way as Hannah Montana, Miranda Cosgrove, or whoever kids these days are into. PewDiePie is engaged in a different kind of celebrity. PewDiePie's fans love him because his videos feel personal, like a conversation between friends. The distance between PewDiePie and his fans feels closer, and yet they exist in completely different worlds. This is worth further examination. In her book, Camgirls, Celebrity and Community in the Age of Social Networks, Teresa Senft wrote about a phenomenon she called microcelebrity.
Microcelebrity is best understood as a new style of online performance that involves people amping up their popularity over the web using technologies like video, blogs, and social networking sites.
Microcelebrity is closely related to the concept of the attention economy. Likes, clicks, views, and subscriptions. Profitability in this sector is measured by how much attention can be garnered. And attention is what fuels microcelebrity. As noted by Alice E. Marwick, microcelebrity is more of a thing someone does rather than something that they are. Marwick also points out that microcelebrity practitioners don't necessarily have to be small scale. Microcelebrity can take place on the scale of millions, if not billions of fans. The important thing about microcelebrity is the mindset of what Marwick calls strategic intimacy.
Microcelebrity practitioners see their audience as fans rather than friends or family, and share information strategically with this audience to boost their popularity and attention within a network.
This analysis of microcelebrity draws from a lot of the same understandings about acting as Brecht's epic theater. What is the performance materially doing? How does the actor relate to the performance? Microcelebrity is a distinctly modern phenomenon, and a further reading of Brecht can help us understand the economic and political context in which it takes place. Brecht criticized contemporary theater as idealist and bourgeois, two words that reflected his Marxist background. Idealism is the opposite of materialism. Where materialism views the human mind as bound to the physical world, idealism is characterized by a belief that the human mind and consciousness in particular exist separately from the material, and that reality is tied to consciousness, not separate from it. Bourgeois, on the other hand, is a term typically used by Marxists to denote the economic class that owns the means of production. The means of production meaning any property that is used to create value, so like a factory or raw materials. These two terms are very closely related, as we'll see. Idealism is often associated very closely with religion, and rightly so. However, that's not the only way it manifests. There's also such thing as secular idealism. Liberalism, for instance, is the political ideology which encompasses most of the modern capitalist world. By liberalism, I don't just mean the Democratic Party in the US. A myriad of world leaders, including Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher, have subscribed to some kind of liberalism. Liberalism is characterized by a focus on individual liberties, but has a tendency to ignore how material conditions in the world can prevent certain groups from actually exercising those liberties. Under liberalism, the capitalist or bourgeois class is the dominant class, controlling both the economy and politics, and thus profit becomes the primary driver of society. Capitalism in general and liberalism in specific are characterized by constant economic growth. This is why the most common metric of a country's success is GDP growth, not life expectancy or literacy. It's easy to see Brecht's criticism of capitalism with his specific critique of bourgeois theater, in which he mentions, among other things, a rigid focus on individuality and refusal of revolutionary change.
The bourgeoisie theater's performances always aim at smoothing over contradictions, at creating false harmony, at idealization. Conditions are reported as if they could not otherwise be. Characters as individuals, incapable by definition of being divided, cast in one block, manifesting themselves in the most various situations. Likewise, for that matter, existing without any situation at all. If there's any development, it is always steady, never by jerks. The development always takes place within a definite framework which cannot be broken through.
It can be said that in the context of an economic system of profit, our attention economy becomes focused solely around the expansion of the audience as the sole measure of success. And in this context, the actor who is absent in audience but is possessed of human agency will exist in constant conflict with the character, which, itself incapable of any action, is the vehicle for capturing the audience. In this sense, the vehicle for expansion becomes the primary focus. The actor, hence, becomes subordinate to the character, and the act of experiencing a character becomes subordinate to merely playing the character. Because on platforms such as YouTube, audience size is largely correlated with profit, the growth of one's audience is often the priority for VTubers, especially those contracted to agencies such as Unlimited or Hololive. To use our understanding of Brecht's theater, in this case, the actor's own experiencing of a character is not as important to immediate growth as playing a character designed to capture an audience. To sum up, there is not a dialectical unity between the actor and the character, but a rigid hierarchy. We've just mentioned how when audience growth is the main objective, the character becomes a vehicle for expansion. Let's think back on some examples we've mentioned before and see what motivated these characters. In Brecht's theater, characters were something for the actor to engage with. A Brechtian performance cannot merely be played from a script. It must be experienced because the point of the performance is exactly that difference between playing and experiencing a character. In the case of Shadow of Israfel, the purpose of the characters was as a creative outlet, a way for the personalities of Lewis Brindley and Simon Lane to manifest themselves in a strange new world. The result was an engaging and hilarious story that didn't quite break the fourth wall, but rather humorously acknowledged its absence. So then, what is the end result of the character of the VTuber? About a week ago, I made a video about the harassment that Hololive VTuber Tokoyami Toa received in response to the male voices that were overheard on her stream. I don't mean to generalize, but I'm curious about why this was a problem for certain people. Perhaps it's because Tokoyami Toa is first and foremost a character, at least as she is perceived by some of her fans. Yes, there is a degree of personality that emerges from the actor behind the screen, but what we must take into account is how she presents herself and how she is presented by Hololive. How did Toa's character become so important to people that they would harass her so cruelly for a breach of it? Alice E. Morwick writes that the most appealing part about micro-celebrity practitioners is their seeming authenticity. More so than typical celebrities, micro-celebrity practitioners can appear to be very close to their audience. This is often deliberate. The mediums and techniques employed by micro-celebrity practitioners allow them to interact much more closely with their audience than prior generations of celebrities, and this in turn promotes a much deeper emotional attachment on the part of the audience. But Marwick warns that this also leads to problems. Fundamentally, a VTuber's design is a barrier between the actor and the audience. Indeed, the use of pseudonyms and virtual costumes allows the VTuber to get quite close to their audience in appearance, but not in reality. Knowing this might help explain why some of the seemingly minor transgressions of the VTuber-audience relationship, like in the case of Toa, result in such extreme backlash. Marwick herself uses the example of Maggie Bon, an American YouTuber who presented an online personality that Marwick says exemplifies buriko, the Japanese concept of over-the-top, cute, and girlish behavior. Maggie Bon was, to put it bluntly, a weeaboo, and her videos featured her speaking Japanese, albeit sometimes quite broken, and saw her reach millions of views and receive an invitation onto Japanese television from a company called Gyao. Yeesh. However, Marwick says that the disparity between the cutesy persona she usually put on and the reality of an awkward American teenager uncomfortable in a foreign land saw much mockery at her expense. Many people delighted in the discrepancy between her public profile and this somewhat disastrous public appearance. The schadenfreude of a faux Japanese Keen doll being exposed as a regular young American girl. The backlash to the exposure of inauthenticity reveals the fundamental issue with the nature of the VTuber. There is this conflict between the need for a character to bring in a large audience and the need for an appearance of authenticity to capture hearts and minds in the way that VTubers need in order to remain in business. I believe it is this conflict and the tension that is produced from the pressure of an actor who seeks an outlet but is subordinated to their own character that produces the sudden explosions of controversy that rock the industry from time to time. Perhaps that says something about the need for reflection on the shaky ground that VTubing seems to have been built on. Through this discussion, we have seen how virtual YouTubers represent a performance in which the actor becomes subordinate to the character. Through Bertolt Brecht, we've seen how the distinction between playing a character and experiencing the character can be made dramatic, and Shadow of Israfel represents a similar dynamic, with our heroes emerging from the relationship between playing and experiencing. We've related this to Unlimited CTuber controversy, and then related it to the concept of micro-celebrity, which helped to solidify our understanding of what VTubing techniques are being used to create the subordination of actor to character. It also touched on how this leads to issues of authenticity. With any luck, I have been able to not only introduce a fair bit of philosophy and economics to you, but have also managed to connect it with VTubers in a way that allows us to think more deeply about this entertainment medium. I believe that the very clear distinction between character and actor that we see with VTubers allows us to discuss concepts such as micro-celebrity in very clear terms. Unfortunately, I will fall short of recommending specific changes to the industry that exists outside the scope of this video. This video has been a learning process for me in many ways, and I hope that in the future I can revisit this topic and come to some more in-depth conclusions. Now, a few points for those enlightened few who've made it this far. I'm sure that many people can point out certain VTubers who are less in character than others, who certainly do bring their own person to the character. Of course, I understand that what I've laid out in my piece doesn't apply as a blanket to all VTubers, but certainly I believe it's the industry standard, especially when it comes to channels owned by agencies. Yes. Now about the comments section. You're all free to post anything you want, save for hate speech and other generally nasty stuff. However, I especially appreciate and look forward to comments that build upon and critique the points I've made. This is a free creative space, so think of it like a classroom without a teacher, and just go to town with your thoughts. I'd also like to take this moment to send a special thank you to Mud, whose channel name suggestion I thought was absolutely the right fit. I hope you don't mind me adapting it a little, Mud, and thank you again for such a wonderful name. I'd also like to send a very, very heartfelt thank you to my good friend Tailgunner, who has very graciously lent his voice to this video. I'll link his YouTube channel in the description. At any rate, thank you all for listening. With any luck, I've prompted a few new ideas for you to mull over. In any case, until next time, I wish you all a very wonderful day.